Aloha mai kākou. Pehea mai ne o ko. Mai kai? All right. My name is Brandon Ledward, and the big idea I want to share with you guys today is about Aina-based learning. What is it, and where can it take us in the 21st century? But first, let's start with a story. The year is 1976. Cast your mind back to that time. Disco was king of the charts, right? America was celebrating its 200th anniversary of independence from British rule, and an unknown company called Apple Computers was being started out of a garage by three guys. It was a crazy year, a year of new possibilities. It was also the year that I was born. I was born in Kailua, Oahu. There were some incredible and extraordinary things happening in Hawaii as well that year. You can name some of them. Hokulea, right? Hawaiian sailing canoe makes its voyage from Hawaii to Tahiti, guided by the stars. There was also a group of Hawaiians from the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana that were attempting a reoccupation of Kaho'olawe, an island that was being used by the military for live fire training exercises. It's considered a desecration. And although those protesters were eventually captured, their actions set the stage for an eventual return of Kaho'olawe. So that's kind of what I was born under, what people refer to as a Hawaiian cultural renaissance. It was bursting all at the seams. And I find it strange that while this is going on outside, most of my educational life was spent in a classroom, right? I could look outside the window and kind of see these things happening, but in the classroom, I was learning about pilgrims and forefathers from textbooks. And the time I spent outdoors was really during recess. And I should say my classroom is in much worse shape than this one. This one looks pretty good. But I think my experience as a Hawaiian in public school was pretty typical at that time. I had very little exposure to Hawaiian language, culture, and history. When I did finally get to take a class, it was all the way in the 9th grade. I was really excited. It's a class on Hawaiiana. Turns out that it was taught by the assistant gym coach of our school. Not necessarily qualified to teach this class. And he promptly delivered one book to us, a book about the Great Mahele. I said, wow. Okay, the Great Mahele, we all know about this, a land law in 1848. But there's really no mention about the generations of history before 1848 or the current struggles being faced by Native Hawaiians today. That was it, one book. And it gets worse. If you wanted to get a passing grade in the class, all you had to do is show up on the last day with a cheesecake. It's a true story. It had been happening for years. Kids knew about it. Yeah, don't read the book, don't do anything, just show up on the last day, give the gym coach a cheesecake, and you got your passing grade. That's what Hawaiian education was worth at the time I was going to school. To some people, it was worth a slice of cheesecake. We can celebrate the fact that today in 2012, we've got Hawaiian language immersion schools and Hawaiian-focused charter schools that are creating these culturally relevant teaching and learning environments for our keiki. Now, what is a culturally relevant teaching and learning environment? From a Hawaiian perspective, it's one that begins with our people, our culture, and our Aina at the center of education. So, that being said, one of the most important vehicles for teaching our culture is the Aina. And it goes back to that new old wisdom we're talking about, right? So when we talk about Aina-based learning, what is it? I offer a simple definition. Aina-based learning is teaching and learning through Aina so that our people, our communities, and our lands thrive. It's an old formula, really, about how things should get done. And let's unpack it. Teaching and learning through Aina. Okay, it's not just about Aina, right? You could learn that as a content area, but you're learning through Aina. It's the lens through which instruction occurs. It's exciting. And who benefits from that approach? Well, it's not just the individual learner, right? It's got to be about community empowerment and the restoration of landscapes, right? So when you think about it, this has really been the dominant form of education that our people had for generations. And it was only in the past 200 years that schooling took place in the classroom. We don't have time to really unpack the nuanced significance of Aina in this talk. It would take a lifetime of TED Talks to unpack Aina. But suffice it to say, Aina refers to the land and all that feeds and sustains us. As Hawaiians, we have a powerful kinship to the Aina. It's a familial connection, and it reminds us of our kuleana to each other and to the planet. And it really can be an incredible theater for learning. So prior to the last 200 years, this is where we did our learning. We did it outdoors. This is a group of students who are learning about the delicate ecosystem of a dryland forest. Today, less than 5% of the world's pristine dryland forests remain intact. This is one place that is close. It's not pristine, but it's close. It's Ka'upulehu on the west side of Hawai'i Island. And look at those kids, they're just soaking it up. They're hearing from community experts, they're hearing from scientists, they're studying the unique biodiversity in the area, and they're coming to really appreciate their Aina as a launch pad for their future and also the repository of knowledge. It's really exciting. Aina-based learning. Well, if you've been following educational reform in the US, you'll know that there's been numerous attempts to reduce the gap that we see between indigenous students and their peers in the classroom. Some of the promising models over the years have been culture-based education, place-based learning, and now we're talking more about 21st century skills. Now, advocates of Aina-based learning would say, you know what? This is old new wisdom at work. This is Aina-based learning. They would argue that there's enduring cultural principles that are at work in these different frameworks, and that they can be brought together through Aina-based learning. One centralizing feature of all those different attributes is that you're trying to make learning relevant, practical, and meaningful for students. It's about engagement. It's about grabbing them and igniting their curiosity. And you can see it when it happens. It's clear as day if you're a teacher. You can see it. It starts with a smile. And for us as Hawaiians, we have a saying, he ali'i ka aina, he kawa ke kanaka. The land is chief, we are its servants. And so that proverb speaks to not only the great respect Hawaiians have for the land, but also the understanding that the land is a teacher. It's a source of knowledge. So we should celebrate that fact. There are three broad areas that I think Aina-based learning can help lead us into the 21st century. The first area is in the development of next century skills. I like the sound of next century skills because it sounds like it's never going to go out of style. As long as there's a next century, I got those skills. But it really is a blending of ancient and modern wisdom, putting it together. We know that the islands themselves hold great significance for scientists. They've been studying islands for years. Charles Darwin's theories in the Galapagos kind of propelled us to a new understanding of humanity. And that was taken from observations on the island. These are students who are sharpening their critical thinking and problem-solving skills by taking water samples and making observations of nearshore marine life. This is a stream system in Puna on Hawai'i Island. So they're gaining those same sort of skills, understanding the systems that are at work. Excuse me. And each year, believe it or not, companies like DuPont spend millions of dollars trying to get educational initiatives going to generate interest in science careers. It's millions of dollars. Here at home, we have grassroots programs that are promoting scientific methodology through encounters with the Aina. And students get to experience not only what it is to do inquiry-based learning, but they're also connecting it with these enduring cultural principles like malama Aina, like kuleana, like ahupua'a. It's exciting stuff when you see it all come together. Another important skill that I think our keiki will need in the next century is effective communication, effective teamwork and collaboration, and synthesis. So working together in the Aina provides an opportunity for all those skills to be developed if you're doing project-based learning, right? Like a paddling team, you have to kind of set a vision for yourselves and get in sync. Lau hoi, paddle in that same rhythm. And you have to work through the elements, right? One thing we know about the Aina is it's unpredictable. If you decide to plant one day and it rains, well, what are you going to do? Plant in the rain or shift your gears to something else? So those are some of the skills that I think our keiki will continue to need in the next century. Another big area that Aina-based learning can speak to is sustainability. You guys all know this. For some people, this is a new concept. For island people, this is how we live. If you're surrounded by miles of ocean, you come to depend heavily on the resources that are available to you, right? And you have to think about the long-term consequences of your actions today. Important skills to learn. Wow, that was fast. Let's get back here. Whoa, it's like there we go. So this is a picture of students who are planting. And for many of our students, like myself, the first time I stepped foot in a lo'i was in college. It took me that long, right? Now our kids are getting out there and they're planting kalo, they're planting uwala. They're learning about where they get their food from, what their food source means to them. And it's an important activity. It's something that they can practice in their home. It makes them have a different relationship to food, right? and to their Aina. One of the things that comes across for kids is that if they may not have access to Aina where they live, right? So the more that schools can provide that, I think it's better. It's better. And they can take things home. They can do container gardens in their own house. But what you hear time and time again from students is that, wow, I'm learning so much from this practice of gardening. And it's not just on the Mauka side, it's on the Makai side as well. And you learn about economical or community-based sustainable economic development. These are kids who are cleaning limu at Paipai'ohe'eia on the windward side of this island, and they're actually selling the limu that's invasive and making money while actually restoring the fish pond. So really clever stuff. Last thing I want to talk about is self-determination. Huge for Native peoples, right? How do we ensure the perpetuation of our culture? How do we get to a platform of a preferred future for our keiki? Well, I think the Aina has a lot to say in that department. It all starts with having a different relationship, a kinship, and that kuleana to the Aina. I know for me, when I started to learn more about kalo and our relationship to it, changed my attitude completely. And for some of these kids, when you're out there on a terraced lo'i, irrigated taro patch, or an 800-year-old fish pond, you start to understand that you're descended from genius, that your kupuna were master architects, and that has a powerful impact on the trajectory of your learning. And that can lead to you having some sort of political literacy, right? This is a picture taken a couple years ago right here on campus. Bachman Hall, there was a protest about GMO and kalo. What was really cool about that day is, in addition to all the college students protesting, there was classes of kids as young as 10 years old getting up there and talking about what they believe was right and wrong. And I'll tell you, nothing I think can shame you more than having a 10-year-old come up and tell you what's pono behavior. That's a powerful thing. And they learn that from the Aina. And we know that can fuel a movement. And we know that we need that, and the time has been coming for a long time for us as Native peoples. So how do we get to that political literacy? How do we build relationships with the Aina so that can sustain us in a direction we want to go in the future? So what is it worth? What is this type of educational approach worth to you? It's the question. What is the value of Aina-based learning? For me, I think of my kids. These are two of them. They're at a stream in Waipau. We spent the day with folks at Papahana Kuola, and I saw it light up with them. And I'm so glad that they got to have these experiences at a younger age than I did. And I can tell you as a parent, I think a lot about the educational experiences that they'll encounter. And I can tell you, as a parent, their education is worth way more than this. It's worth way more than a cheesecake, right? I don't want them to have to come in one day, turn this in, and bypass all that education, right? I mean, it may be delicious, but it's still not worth it. So I ask you guys, as parents, is it worth making a phone call to your schools and finding out what Aina-based learning opportunities your keiki are experiencing or not? Teachers, is it worth educating yourself about Aina-based learning and checking out some of the resources available in your community? Principals, if there's any principals in here, is it worth throwing your support behind culture and Aina-based programming, right? And finally, funders and landowners. Is it worth putting the financial conditions and the access to land in place to allow Aina-based learning to take root and thrive? I'm fortunate I work at Kamehameha Schools and with community partners who are advancing Aina-based learning every day. I learned so much on the job. There's been tremendous work that's being done. Ka'ala Farms, Ma'o Farms, Paipai'ohe'eia, Waipaw Foundation, just a few. But there's so much more work to be done. And we have to take it to the next level. We have to think about it beyond just being a one-time field trip. We're going to the lo'i. Okay, now we're going back to learn real things. We can't think about it as just enrichment. It's actually a process of integrating multiple contexts and multiple content areas together. So I leave that with you today. It's our kuleana to find out what Aina-based learning can be in the 21st century. We know what it was prior to the 19th century, and hopefully we can take it there in the future. So mahalo and aloha Aina.